Good morning, guys. Today we're going to continue our discussion with irrational exponents. So these are exponents with fractions, and this is part 2. We're still going to use the rules that we learned so far, the product rule, power rule, quotient rule, exponent of 0, and negative exponents. But since we're dealing with fractions, we're going to look at what happens when we have to, add exponents that are fractions and subtract exponents that are fractions. Okay, and so there's a little bit of kind of a side note that I put here that kind of goes over a couple of rules of fractions. So today we're going to be adding, sorry about that, we're going to be adding and subtracting fractions to solve our problems. So if you want to review, this is in text format, the steps to add and subtract fractions with common denominators, or adding and subtracting fractions with different denominators. But on It's Learning, I also attached a video link to just a short video. I think it's like 7 minutes, going over the different operations that you can do with fractions. How do you add and subtract fractions, multiply and divide. It's kind of a quick overview. And again, these are just topics that we've probably seen in middle school and in Algebra 1, but it's kind of nice to go over them again to kind of remember how to add and subtract fractions. And if you feel like you remember, then go ahead and continue with the video, and we'll see how we work out these examples. So let's go right in, and let's go to example 1, but let's read the instructions. It says, use the properties of exponents to simplify the following algebraic expressions. Write all exponents in simplified fractional form. Okay, so make sure that the exponents are in their simplified fraction form, and make sure that your answers contain only positive exponents. So make sure that our answers contain only positive exponents, and make sure to write the exponents in simplified fractional form. Okay. Nice. So keeping those two things in mind, let's jump into example 1. Okay. So we have the multiplication of x to the power of 1/2 times x to the power of 3/2, and this is equal to, when we have two exponential variables multiplying, their exponents are going to add. So we're going to add 1/2 plus 3/2. 1/2 plus 3/2. So that's going to give us, since they have the same denominator, here, they both have a denominator of 2. That means the numerators can add. Okay, so if I add 1 plus 3, that gives me 4 divided by 2. And so 4 divided by 2, that's x squared. Okay, so following the progression again, these two are multiplying, so that means that the exponents are going to add. The exponents had a common denominator, and so the numerators add, giving us 4 divided by 2, and simplifies to 2. All right, let's go to example 2. Okay, here we have numbers and variables. So let's kind of group them together like we've done in the past, where we do group the numbers. 2 times -6, and then y to the 2/3 times y to the 1/2. Okay, so that's going to give us negative 12 times y. So the exponents are going to add again because the y's are multiplying, so it's going to be 2/3 plus 1/2. 2/3 plus 1/2. So do they have a common denominator? No. But what is going to be their common denominator is 6. So the common denominator of 3 and 2 is 6. So how do I change this 3 into a 6? I multiply times 2 and times 2. And then on the other fraction, the 1/2, how do I make the 2 into a 6? I have to multiply 2 times 3. So whatever I do to the bottom, I have to multiply it on the top. So then this is going to equal to negative 12, bring over the y, and multiply, right? So 2 times 2 is 4, divided by 6, plus, right, 2 times 2 is 4, 2 times 3 is 6, and 3 times 1 is 3, and 2 times 3 is 6. So here I'm going to get 3 over 6. Over 6. All right, now the denominators are the same. So the numerators can add, and I end up with negative 12y to the 7 over 6. Awesome. So let's go to example 3. Zoom in over here. All right, so multiply the numbers together. We multiply negative 5 times 11, then multiply the y's. So I have y to the power of 1 times y to the power of 1/3. You know what? I'm going to write it a little bit bigger, just so that I can write the exponents a little bit bigger as well. Y to the power of 1 times y to the power of 1/3. Okay, this is going to equal to negative 55. Then the y exponents are going to add, so it's 1 plus 1/3. Okay, and this 1 that I have here, it's the same thing as if I have 1 over 1. Okay, so we got to make the denominators the same, so I can make this fraction into having a denominator. I can change the denominator of this fraction to become a 3 by multiplying the 1 times the 3, but whatever I multiply the bottom by, I have to multiply the top by 3. So times 3 on the bottom times 3 on the top. That gives me, bring down the negative 55, bring down the y, and I'm going to have 3 over 3 plus 1 over 3. Right, 3 times 1 is 3, 3 times 1 is 3. Now the denominators are the same, so the numerators can add. So it's negative 55y to the 3 plus 1 is 4 with a common denominator of 3. All right. Number 4. All right, multiply the numbers together. So I have, let me write it a little bit bigger. I have negative 13 times negative 3. Then multiply the m's, so m to the power of 7 over 4 times m to the power of negative 1. So I'm going to multiply negative 13 times 3. Negative 13 times negative 3 is positive 39. Then the m's are multiplying, so the exponents are going to add. But it's plus a negative 1. But this plus negative changes, right, to 7 over 4 minus 1. But if I just have 1, then we assume that there is a 1 underneath. So it's 1 over 1. And I want to have a common denominator. The common multiple is going to be 4. So I can change this denominator to a 4 by multiplying the bottom times 4. But whatever I multiply the bottom, I have to multiply the top. So that gives me 39m to the 7 over 4 minus 4 over 4. So the denominators are the same. We have common denominators. So that means that the numerators can subtract. So I have 7 minus 4 is 3 over 4. All right, let's go to number 5. Oh, okay, so there's more space here. Awesome. All right, so here we have fractions, or we have a fraction. So what I like to do with fractions in this case is kind of group them. So I have, the numbers group, the m's, and the n's. Okay, I'm kind of working with each one. So first off, what happens with the 36 and the 12? So 36 divided by 12 is 3. And then times m. The m's are dividing, so their exponents subtract. So it's going to be 5 thirds minus 5 thirds, right? 5 thirds minus 5 thirds. And then the n's are dividing, so their exponents are going to subtract. So it's going to be 1/4 minus 7/4. Okay, that's what that equals. And then it equals to bring down the 3. 5 thirds minus 5 thirds is m to the 0 power. Then with the n, they have a common denominator. They both have 4, so the numerators can subtract. So 1, oh, you know what? Sorry about that. This part over here, it's a negative, minus a negative, so it's 1/4 minus a negative 7/4. So it's a negative 7/4. So that changes to 1/4 plus 7/4 equals 3 times anything to the power of 0 becomes a 1 times n to the 1 plus 7 is 8 divided by 4, right? Because we have a common denominator. So 1 plus 7 is 8 divided by 4. And so my final answer, 3 times 1 is 3, and then 8 divided by 4 becomes 2. Awesome. And then let's go to example 6. Again, doing kind of a similar grouping, but this time I'll write it out. So we're going to group negative 24 divided by 15 times x to the power of 1 divided by x to the power of 1/4 times the y's, y to the power of 1/2 divided by y to the power of 1/3. So kind of separating everything so we can see what's going on. Negative 24 over 15, you can't divide 24 by 15, but you can simplify. Both of these numbers are divisible by 3. So I can divide both of these by 3. So negative 24 divided by 3 is negative 8. 15 divided by 3 is 5. Then I have the x's, the exponents are going to subtract, so it's 1 minus 1/4 times y 1/2 minus 1/3. Okay, so I have like two fractions that are subtracting. So this 1 minus 1/4, it's like a 1 over 1. And so I'm going to bring down the negative 8 over 5. And then times. Over here, I can multiply with the x's. I can multiply the bottom by 4, but then I have to multiply the top by 4. So that gives me x 4 over 4 minus 1 over 4 times, now working with the y's, I need to get a common denominator between these two, so I can change both of these into a 6. How do I change the 2 into a 6? I can multiply the 2 by 3. But whatever I do to the bottom, I have to do it on the top. And then over here, I can change the 3 to a 6 by multiplying the 3 times 2, but whatever I do to the bottom, I have to do it to the top. So I end up getting 3 times 1 is 3, 3 times 2 is 6, so 3 over 6 minus 2 times 1 is 2, 2 times 3 is 6, so minus 2 over 6, and then let me zoom out a little bit more here. So we're going to bring down the negative 8 over 5 times x we have a common denominator here, so 4 minus 1 is 3, so we get 3/4 times y. Here we have a common denominator, so the numerators can subtract. 3 minus 2 is 1/6. And then one final thing you can do is, since the negative 8 is in the numerator and the denominator of the x and the 1 is like a 1 and a 1, so we can actually rewrite it as negative 8x to the 3/4 times y to the 1/6, everything divided by 5. Oh, and the last thing I want to highlight is just remembering over here that these two pairs of fractions had a common denominator. That's why I was able to subtract them, right? Because the x's had a common denominator and the y exponents had a common denominator. So let's go over to number 7. All right, so here, what I would like to do is, since I have, two x terms on top, we can actually combine them. So I'd rather do that. So let's put the x's together, and there's a nice thing that's going to happen. So I'm going to rewrite the problem so that I have x to the 3/4 times x to the negative 3/4 times y to the 1/2 divided by y negative 2. Okay, so all I did is I put the x's next to each other. So I have x to the 3/4 first, and then x to the negative 3/4 second, times y to the 1/2 divided by y to the negative 2. So I'm going to work out these first, the x's first, and see what happens with those. So if they're multiplying, their exponents are going to add. So I'm going to end up with x to the power of 3/4 plus negative 3/4 times y to the 1/2 divided by y to the negative 2. So these fractions here are going to cancel. It's 3/4 minus 3/4. These are going to cancel. And so it's actually x to the power of 0. But anything to the power of 0 becomes 1. So we're just left with y 1/2 divided by y to the negative 2. Right, this will be x to the power of 0. But x to the power of 0 will become 1. And so it's going to cancel out. And so all we're left with is y to the 1/2 divided by y to the negative 2. Now the next thing we can do is work with the y's, and since they're dividing, their exponents are going to subtract, so it's going to be 1/2 minus -2. But since I have a minus negative situation, it's actually going to change to 1/2 plus 2. And if the 2 doesn't have a denominator, we assume that it has a 1. So if I have this fraction here, then I have to get a common denominator. I can change this 1 into a 2 by multiplying the 1 by 2, but whatever I do to the bottom of the fraction, I have to do it on the top. So that's going to change to y to the 1/2 plus 2 times 2 is 4, and 1 times 2 is 2. And so final answer is going to be y to the 5/2. Because 1 plus 4 is 5, divided by the common denominator of 2. Awesome. And then let's go to the last example. Example 8. Example 8. So let's see here. What I want to do is again put the m's together, but notice that I have in this parentheses I have positive values, and then in the second parentheses I have a negative. So a positive times a negative is going to give me a negative on top. So I'm going to put the negative in the front. Then I'm going to copy m to the 5/4 times m to the -1/2 times n to the -2/3. So notice what I did. I brought down the m to the 5/4, but I put this negative in the front, and then I put m to the -1/2 second, then n to the -2/3 I put it last. And then divided by, then I'm just going to copy the denominator. Now notice here where the negative is, if there's no number there, we assume that there is a 1 there. So what's going to happen with the -1 and the -1/3? Negative divided by negative is going to change to a positive. Positive m. And then when I multiply the m's, their exponents are going to add. So it's going to be 5/4 plus -1/2 times n to -2/3, so I'm just copying that one, divided by 3n to the 7/3. Actually, let me write that a little bit bigger. Okay. So again, if you notice the changes, negative divided by negative becomes a positive. So the fraction changes from having a negative on top and a negative on the bottom to canceling the negatives and having a positive fraction. Then the m's are multiplying, so their exponents add, and I just copied this n and I copied the 3n to the power of 7/3. So now let's work with with these m's here. So let me zoom out a little bit. So here's what I want to work on next. We have a plus and a negative, so that changes to m to the 5/4 minus 1/2. And now what happens with the ends? That's the next thing. Since the ends are dividing, their exponents are going to subtract. So it's going to be negative 2/3 minus 7/3. Divided by, so what stays on the bottom, because remember the ends are subtracting, so it becomes an n on top. And what stays on the bottom is the 3, because we haven't messed with the 3. Okay, so now looking at the m, I have a 4 and a 2. The common denominator here is 4, so I can change this 2 into a 4 by multiplying the bottom by 2, but whatever I multiply the bottom by, I have to multiply the top. So that's going to give me m to the 5/4 minus 2/4, because 2 times 1 is 2, and 2 times 2 is 4. Divided by, I'm just going to copy the 3. And what happens with the ends? What happens with the ends? Negative, they both have a common denominator already. They both have 3. So that means that their numerators can combine, but they're both negative, so they're going to add negative. So negative 2 minus 7 is negative 9 over 3. Negative 9 over 3. Let me erase some of the fraction here. And so this is going to equal to m, the power of 5 minus 2 is 3, so 3/4 times n to the negative 3, because negative 9 divided by 3 is negative 3. Everything divided by 3. Right. But there's actually one more thing I can do. This is going to equal to, I can move, because remember I need to make sure that the exponents are positive. So I have an exponent of negative 3 on top. So if I move it to the bottom, it's going to change to a positive. So my final answer is going to be m to the 3/4 divided by 3n to the 3rd. And so that brings us to the end of our examples, or the end of our notes. And so if you guys have any questions, you can bring them up next class, and I'll be able to answer anything that you need clarification on, or any problem that you want to just double check and work out again. Thank you for joining me, guys. Have a great Have a great day.